Once the strange phenomenon dissipated, Li Fan distinctly felt that some indefinable change had taken place within him. Yet after thorough self-examination, he still couldn't identify the exact nature of this shift. Since it didn't seem harmful, he chose to set the matter aside for the time being. Li Fan realized his current position differed slightly from where he had first arrived in the cultivation world during his previous life. Lioli Island was the nearest, so he decided to head there first. After all, he had spent considerable time on Lioli Island in his past life and was quite familiar with it. Having chosen his direction, Li Fan did not use the Taiyan boat. Instead, he cast the wind-riding art and flew toward Lioli Island. Although old nice guy He Zhenghao was a bit greedy, he was at least reasonably trustworthy. Compared to dealing with complete strangers, Li Fan preferred interacting with acquaintances to reduce uncertainty. The identity he planned to adopt was that of a rogue cultivator from the Tsongyan Sea who had luckily reached the late-stage Qi refinement realm, lacking a suitable technique for foundation establishment. He sought to join the Myriad Immortals Alliance. The Taiyan boat would be somewhat eye-catching for a rogue cultivator's identity. To avoid drawing unnecessary attention and suspicion, Li Fan opted to travel by riding the wind himself. It was slower, but he wasn't in any rush. In fact, this gave him a chance to adjust to the changes in his surroundings. Back in Great Xian, Li Fan had vaguely sensed that his affinity with spiritual qi had inexplicably improved in this lifetime. However, with no spiritual qi present in the immortal Forsaken Lands, he couldn't confirm it. Now, immersed once more in the cultivation world and feeling the surrounding spiritual qi, Li Fan finally verified that his suspicion was correct. In his previous life, he had forcibly drawn spiritual qi from heaven and earth through his heaven-earth route. Much like operating a pump, in contrast, this lifetime required only a single thought for the world's spiritual qi to willingly flow into his dantian without any resistance. While it still couldn't compare to the intimacy with spiritual qi that Xiaoheng had described, it was far superior to before. Li Fan suspected this change likely stemmed from the heaven-earth root itself. He hadn't anticipated that retaining his previous life's cultivation through return to truth would bring such an unexpected benefit. Although pleased, Li Fan also felt there might be a deeper reason behind it. Before he could ponder further, however, his expression suddenly changed. In his perception, a powerful wave of killing intent had locked onto him from a great distance and was rapidly approaching. Moreover, the opponent's aura was formidable. This was at least a foundation establishment cultivator. Though the situation was puzzling, Li Fan didn't hesitate. He immediately summoned the Taiyan boat, pushed it to full speed, and fled toward the nearest island, Lioli Island. His pursuer seemed momentarily surprised that Li Fan possessed a flying boat, but after a brief pause, the enemy accelerated even faster. Inside the Taiyan boat, Li Fan's face grew grim. The distance was too great for his divine sense to reach, yet judging by the steadily closing killing intent, the other party's speed clearly surpassed that of the Taiyan boat. After a moment's hesitation, Li Fan decided to unleash a thread of formless killing mechanism toward his pursuer. His vision suddenly darkened, and faint, indistinct whispers echoed in his ears. His surroundings became hazy and distorted, and he felt as though countless eyes were watching him from the shadows. Fortunately, the hallucinatory vision vanished as quickly as it had appeared. In the blink of an eye, everything returned to normal. Li Fan knew this was the side effect of using formless killing mechanism on a target whose cultivation surpassed his own. The technique borrowed the authority of heaven's will, and borrowing such power always carried risk. If a mortal forged an imperial decree, their entire clan would face execution. How much more severe would the consequences be for impersonating the will of heaven? The wider the gap between his cultivation and his targets, the more likely heaven's will would detect the deception. Fortunately, a difference of one major realm seemed to fall within an acceptable margin. The moment formless killing mechanism was released, nothing happened at first. But soon, Li Fan felt a sudden gust of wind. This wind spiraled relentlessly along the path of his pursuer, swiftly coalescing into a tornado. The tornado shimmered with faint azure light, resembling a colossal dragon as it roared toward the enemy. Caught off guard, the pursuer was struck head-on. Seizing the opportunity, Li Fan accelerated his escape. Not long afterward, a thunderous explosion rang out from behind. It seemed the pursuer had broken free of the tornado and was now flying even faster in Li Fan's direction. The killing intent grew even more intense. Just as the enemy was about to close in again, a massive shark leaped high from the sea's surface and swallowed him whole. Boom! A burst of flames erupted from beneath the waves. The shark was incinerated into nothingness, and the pursuer emerged from the water, looking disheveled and increasingly frantic. After locking onto Li Fan's position, he resumed his pursuit at greater speed, yet every time he drew near, some sudden and unexpected event would intervene. From the clear, sunlit sky, a bolt of lightning abruptly struck down from the heavens. It hit him squarely. Had it not been for a sudden protective glow that erupted from his body at the critical moment, deflecting most of the lightning's force, he would have been killed outright. Finally, Lioli Island came into view. Seeing this, Li Fan immediately flew toward the island protection array at the center of Lioli Island. The man hovered motionless in the air for a moment before slowly recovering. Shaken and furious, he roared, "He Zhenghao, get out here and help me kill this little thief." A familiar voice responded from Lioli Island. "Enforcer Wan? What happened to you?" Li Fan, still flying toward the island, abruptly halted at their exchange. Trapped between the two with nowhere to run, he cursed under his breath. Then, he silently recited in his mind, "Return to truth." "This simulation has ended." Li Fan regained consciousness, still feeling somewhat dumbfounded. That life had been the shortest he had experienced since first receiving Return to Truth. It had ended after only 9 years. He had originally been full of grand ambitions and meticulous plans. Who could have imagined he would be inexplicably hunted down the moment he entered the cultivation world? Even more absurd was that his pursuer was actually a member of the Myriad Immortals Alliance, unaware of the man's identity. Li Fan had even thought to flee to He Zhenghao on Lioli Island for protection. The result was him being cornered by 2 Foundation establishment cultivators. His pursuer had come from 1,000 li away with a clear purpose: to execute Li Fan. Li Fan didn't believe asking for a reason would yield an honest answer. Facing 2 Foundation establishment cultivators, he had no chance of survival, so he decisively chose to start over. Why would the Myriad Immortals Alliance hunt him down, and so soon after his arrival in the cultivation world? That Songyun Si was still firmly under the Alliance's control, and they clearly had some method of pinpointing his location. Where had the problem originated? What had gone wrong? Could it be because he had brought Qianhong's remains back to the cultivation world? Or perhaps... Li Fan carefully inspected and eliminated each item in his possession one by one. Finally, he fixed on a target: the lesser water manipulation art. After much reflection, this technique was the most suspicious. After all, at this moment, he had no connection whatsoever to the Myriad Immortals Alliance. Only this technique had been linked to the Alliance in his previous life. The Myriad Immortals Alliance must constantly monitor the lesser water manipulation art, and all other techniques. If they suddenly discovered that a particular technique had not been redeemed through official channels, yet the number of cultivators practicing it had increased by 1, they would know the technique had been leaked. Regardless of how the leak occurred, the Alliance would inevitably want to recover it, and the simplest way to do so was to kill the practitioner. Looking at the options still floating before his eyes, Li Fan calmed his mind and still chose to retain the cultivation level from his previous life. In an instant, he returned to the Qi refinement realm. Afterward, Li Fan activated the Taishang primordial true scripture without the slightest hesitation and dissolved his late-stage Qi refinement cultivation of the lesser water manipulation art. After that, everything unfolded exactly as it had in his previous life. In Anchor Year 9, Li Fan arrived in the cultivation world once more. Since he had not cultivated the lesser water manipulation art, he did not attract the pursuit of the Myriad Immortals Alliance's enforcers this time. Only then did Li Fan slowly make his way toward Lioli Island. As he flew over the sea near Lioli Island, a certain image from his memories suddenly flashed through his mind. He immediately stopped and looked downward. His gaze pierced through the seawater, reaching the depths of the ocean floor. There, schools of Lioli fish were dragging the corpses of mortals, offering them as tribute to a massive, golden Lioli fish. These were people from all corners of the sea who had perished through various misfortunes. The golden Lioli fish swayed its bloated body, swallowing the human corpses delivered by its subordinates one after another. It glared at them with its large eyes, then greedily gazed upward toward the sea's surface. It seemed to know that fresher mortals awaited above. Li Fan watched this scene and let out a cold snort. Formless killing mechanism stirred in response. Deep beneath the sea, the lily fish that had been clustered around their leader, diligently offering tribute, suddenly froze in unison. The golden lily fish, somewhat displeased, was just about to discipline its underlings when it abruptly noticed that the surrounding school of lily fish had begun to behave strangely. Their eyes glowed with a red light, all fixed intently on the giant golden lily fish. Sensing danger, the golden lily fish tried to flee, but it was already too late. The figure of the golden lily fish vanished within the school. Streaks of golden blood slowly rose to the water's surface. Li Fan held a lily pearl in his hand, examining it closely. A pity it's not a heaven and earth curio, but merely carrying it provides an effect similar to consuming a lily pill. This object is still quite remarkable. Satisfied, Li Fan stored it away and continued flying toward Lily Island. As he drew near Lily Island, Li Fan paused mid-air and released his spiritual chi. Within moments, a voice called out from a distance. "May I know which fellow Taoist has come to Lily Island?" Along with the voice, the figure of He Zhenghao appeared. Li Fan cupped his hands in salute. "Greetings, fellow Taoist He." He Zhenghao looked at Li Fan with a slightly puzzled expression.